Gallery number 9 deals with life in suspension. The 7 months between October 1942, after the Great Deportations, and the beginning of the uprising in April 1943. The ghetto after the deportation was a completely different space, with almost no children or elderly. 300,000 people disappeared from the streets, and only about 50,000 were left. These 7 months usually do not get the proper treatment in Holocaust museums, and it was important for us to talk about it and to bring the attention of the visitors to what happened to those about 50,000 Jews who still survived the Great Deportation and were living in horrible conditions in the ghetto. We called it a ghost town in our museum. You could see the empty streets with furniture thrown on the sidewalks and all the belongings of the Jews who were just deported to Treblinka being spread all over, broken. Special squad, the Fassung, was in charge in collecting these belongings of the Jews who were deported. The ghetto, after the deportations, actually became a huge forced labor camp with people working to earn their livings. They did not get paid, but they got some budget to purchase food. They actually lived in the places that they worked in. The factories were ran by the Germans, and the immediate directors were some Jews who knew how to handle these factories. The Jews who worked there worked in horrible conditions. Just a few months back, they lost their families, they lost their communities, and now they had to work and to produce for the Germans. We are going to show in the gallery the workplaces, the shops. Knowledge about what's going on in Treblinka reached the ghetto through individuals who escaped the death camp and returned to the ghetto. We will show the story of David Nowodwirsky, who escaped Treblinka, went back to the ghetto and told what he saw. Another element that is very important for us to show is the January revolt, what we are referring to as the small uprising. So what happened was that during this time, 2 Jewish combat organizations were formed and started to prepare themselves for revolt, to resist the Germans. The Jewish Combat Organization and the Jewish Military Organization both were comprised by young people, young individuals who were in the ghetto, incarcerated in the ghetto. They knew they had to fight back. They knew they have to do something. They cannot stay in these horrible conditions. They knew they are living on a borrowed time, and they wanted to prepare themselves to do something, to resist. We are going to show some objects and documents connected to these fighting organizations, and to speak about individuals like Mordechai Anilevich and Pavel Frankel, the attempts to trigger an uprising in January 1943 led to conversations between the 2 combat organizations. But unfortunately, they didn't find a common ground. They didn't unite in order to fight the Germans. In January 1943, the Germans resumed deportations. They wanted to send a few thousand people from the ghetto. Over the course of 4 days, about 8,000 people were deported to Treblinka and another few hundreds were shot in the streets. My name is Daniela Osatsky-Stern. I'm from Israel. I'm a Holocaust historian dealing with the history of World War II and the Holocaust. In the Warsaw Ghetto Museum, I will be covering Gallery 9, Life in Suspension, and Gallery 6, Families in the Ghetto and Living Conditions.